How much can Reed Strucker's past impact the Mutant Underground's future? And what about Pulse? Here's what happened in The Gifted Season 1, Episode 8. So far, Fox's The Gifted has gone through almost everyone's history in an effort to contextualize their present struggles, and threat of extinction was Reed Strucker's time in the spotlight. For someone who was on the wrong side of the human-mutant conflict, could he be the person who helps end it? Threat of extinction started with our furthest flashback yet, taking The Gifted all the way back to 1952 in London, where Andreas von Strucker guest star. Paul Cooper and his wife are caught by German agents who storm their house. Andreas seems unbothered, and we see a strange glowing coming from his and Andrea's joined hands before the agents start screaming. Wait, what? In the present day, Reed Strucker Stephen Moyer tells his family that their estranged grandfather worked for Trask Industries, the company that's now collaborating with Sentinel Services. They're in agreement that Reed needs to speak to him now, while Polaris Emma Dumont still thinks that Eclipse Sean Teal liked his cartel work a little too much. That leaves Thunderbird Blair Redford in charge of Mutant Underground operations. He not only agrees to Reed's plan, but has to deal with still more incoming refugees, as Sentinel Services raids on the Underground are continuing. In the wake of Polaris refusing to work with Eclipse, it's Blink Jamie Chung who steps up to help him, still enraged over the murder of her foster parents. The three of them pick up a dozen refugees who've been hiding at a church, but Esme guest star Skylar Samuels is a telepath and tells Thunderbird that she suspects one of the others isn't who she seems. The woman turns out to be another mutant working for Sentinel Services, and it's only some quick teamwork from all three of our heroes that subdues her. The would-be spy is Chloe Tan, who earns the moniker Vicious guest star Michelle Kim. Polaris and Eclipse are tasked with having to find out about her and what her goals are, while Thunderbird and Reed go to try and collar Reed's father, who's now running an antique store. Cue the family awkwardness. Otto, played by Raymond J. Barry, is not happy to see his son. He's already been interrogated by Sentinel Services, and doesn't want to be further questioned by Reed. But when Reed tells him that Trask Enterprises is back and experimenting on mutants, Dad is stopped in his tracks. He asks Reed about his kid's powers, which seem to click with something in his head. Reed: this is not about blame. My family are fighting for their lives. Back at the base, Eclipse asks Vicious, and becomes convinced that she's going through some drug withdrawal, while he and Caitlin Amiako want to treat her, and maybe get help through helping her. That's an unpopular opinion with Polaris, even as Eclipse points out that he joined the Mutant Underground to stop torturing people. Time for Andy and Lauren, Percy Hines White and Natalie Allen Lynn to come to the rescue again. The Gifted continues to make good use of their newly developed powers, as they're able to hold on to Vicious long enough for Caitlin to sedate her. When Caitlin examines her, though, she thinks that the woman may be dying from the drug. And speaking of torture, Blink realizes one of the new refugees was from her former foster home, and present for the shooting that killed her foster parents. Yoch. Otto tells Reed about his father Andreas, and says that Andreas and Andrea had the same powers as Andy and Lauren. That also makes him a mutant. Reed's brain explodes. Then it gets even worse as the Gifted reveals that, by extension, Reed should have also developed some kind of mutant ability. But we know he didn't, so why not? Otto reveals that he was part of a research project to eliminate the X gene, and he discovered a serum that he administered to Reed. That's why Reed nearly died as a child, but it did keep him from becoming a mutant. More from television. 11:20. The Flash Season 4, Episode 7 synopsis. Therefore I am 11:20. Supergirl Season 3, Episode 7 recap. Wake up. 11:20. Harley Quinn getting her own animated series. 11:20. CW Arrowverse Crisis on Earth. Ex-Nazis crash a wedding. 11:20. Watch by Max returns free. Big Hero 6. The series Live. It doesn't take a scientist to follow the logic now. The government is still searching for the serum that would work on all mutants and eliminate mutant from society. Otto further warns that Lauren and Andy will likely have the same result as Andreas and Andrea if they use their powers together. But before Reed can get more information from him, Drive. Roderick Campbell recurring guest star Garrett Dillahunt is on their trail, and he's brought Pulse guest star Zach Roerig with him. After apologizing to his son, Otto sacrifices himself to let Reed and Thunderbird have a chance to escape. Despite Pulse's best efforts, Otto self-destructs in front of Campbell and the agents, and sends them fleeing in terror. Otto, protect them, son. Protect the world from them. While Reed mourns the death of his father, Thunderbird finds a barely conscious Pulse outside of the antique shop. Pulse apologizes for his actions and holds on to his old friend's hand as he, too, dies. But they're not the only ones who won't be with us after this. Caitlin asks Esme to read Vicious's mind before it's too late. She experiences a vision of Campbell's secret lab at Trask Industries, and Caitlin promises Vicious that they'll find the people who turned her into a weapon before the other woman likewise succumbs to her injuries. Threat of extinction ends as Blink makes an unexpected move. She asks dreamer Elena Satine to use her powers to help erase the young survivors' memories of the foster home slaughter from her head. Meanwhile, Reed and Thunderbird bury their loved ones before they return to the base and are crushed. Reed can't find the words to tell his family that his father has died. As Caitlin comforts her husband, we see Lauren and Andy hold hands, just as Andreas and Andrea once did. Except now it looks really ominous, doesn't it? Threat of extinction gives us valuable information about the mythology of the Gifted Season 1, and the first real insight into the scientific aspect of the show. Now we have a better idea of what drive Campbell is scheming for, and a little better understanding of what at least one portion of the government is thinking. But while that's valuable context, the episode is almost more important for what it tells us about Reed and the Strucker family in general. It's a genuine shocker to find out that mutation runs in Reed's family, and that he should have been a mutant himself. That obviously will drastically alter Reed's worldview yet again. He had a hard enough time accepting that his kids were mutants. What do you do when you realize that you are what you've spent at least a portion of your career prosecuting? Stephen Moyer gives one of his best performances of the Gifted Season 1 so far as Reed struggles to reconcile the newfound truth about himself and his family. He now not only has to reconsider all he knows about his past, but thanks to Otto, he has to be wary of what could happen with his kids in the future. They could be like the Wonder Twins, except one of them shouldn't turn into a bucket of water. There are other things happening here, too, like the inevitable ideological disagreement between showing mercy and doing what you need to do to survive that Eclipse and Polaris represent, but Threat of Extinction is more of a my-dark episode that scrambles the fundamental things we had known about the Gifted Season 1, and in a way that just makes the show even more compelling. Now what? For the latest The Gifted Season 1 spoilers and news, plus more on everything happening in fall TV, follow the television category at Fansided.